And I would say that when you're evaluating, these kids and their communication, and I'm only bringing this up, this not necessarily obviously your client or patient, but we see a lot of kids where they're making these leaps or they're doing well outside of school, but they're really struggling in school. Either the accommodations, interventions aren't there, but they're missing something like a key why. We see the learning processing difficulties. We see the speech and language challenges. We see more and more kids with ADHD. It's amazing how many we see with these additional challenges that affect their ability to communicate because they're not able to either stay focused. So I would say to families, I'm just saying it as an add-on to the school, is that really assess their child's academics. Like, are they starting and completing tasks? Is it not even just nonverbal, but how are they doing? Right. And that needs to be addressed and meeting them and figuring out what might else be going on, because drilling it in, I need my kid to talk, that attitude, it's like, okay, what could you be missing that's affecting their ability to talk, to be verbal?
Right.
And language is different in a school environment, so it's just Dr. Evelyn Klein always said, like, the deconceptualized language. It's different than Mom, I want milk, or I want to play with Jimmy.
Yep. It's
different language. No, I think this is really good. And another thing you brought up with the parents, a lot of parents are on a mission. I need to do it 100 times in a week. I need to do this. I need to do that. Like, I'm getting home from work and we're going and doing exposures. Take a deep breath, because that anxiety you're projecting of we need to get it done is only going on to your child. And maybe you need to go to the gym. Maybe you need to go relax. Maybe you need a girls' night out. Maybe you need a dad's night out. Like, you need to be in a place where you're going at this in a calm way. I mean, do you see this too? I mean, you do, obviously, but how do you talk to your clients about that?
Well, I think it's like the oxygen mask on the airplane, exactly. Right? Like, you got to put yours on before you can assist somebody else. So if you have no ability to kind of provide self-care,
right,
then you're going to have a harder time managing your own distress and managing their distress. And so they really have to think about how they can get that self-care in. Again, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be, I train a lot of professionals in working with families after disasters, and we talk to these professionals a lot about their own self-care in those moments. And they don't have time maybe to go for a run or to go to the gym. They may have 30 seconds to take a deep breath, or watch a silly video, or look at a cute picture of their pet, or a baby picture. That's what I do. I look at my kids and their baby pictures, because that makes me feel better instantly. And so within kind of whatever time frame they have, find something that they can do for self-care. And if they end up with more time, great. Then maybe that means they get in a little bit extra that day. But if they don't do any, then they're really going to be doing a disservice to themselves and to their kid. And I think that's a really tricky thing. I think especially for a lot of parents who work and they have a lot on their plate, and now they're working on having to provide, they're doing the treatment out and about. And so helping them to reflect that, this is actually something they need, this is their prescription, that they need to do this for themselves in order to be steadier for their kid and feel like they can be there. Because again, if they don't sleep, if they don't exercise, or they don't eat well, or they don't even take 5 seconds for themselves, I know how I am if I don't sleep in a day. I'm a terror, right? So it's we got to help them recognize that is actually going to help them be better able to manage it, especially in those exposures. If they're putting their kid into a stressful situation and their kid gets upset, it's going to be a lot harder for them to manage their own distress and tolerate that distress than if they have had at least a teeny bit of self-care. And again, I think it varies per person on what is going to fill that cup, but hopefully they can find something even in a short period of time that they can do for themselves.
There's aunts, uncles, grandparents, perhaps. Yeah. There's family, friends, going to a friend's house. Sometimes our kids with their parents, especially as kids get older, they sense that expectation, and they're very different with their parents. So sometimes, I have plenty of kids that do better when they're not necessarily with their parents. And that's not a negative. It just means the sense that they feel because, their parents love them so much. It's not about that. But it's more wait, if I'm not the best person, maybe some other people can take them out and about. And so that takes off also the pressure off. It's hard to raise kids. it's a tough time in life in general right now. And so it's a lot going on and stress is there. And so it's about being kind to yourself and knowing, wait, you know what? I can't do this all myself.
Yeah. Having that grace, right? Give yourself some love and kindness, just like you might extend to someone else. Like, we're so much harder on ourselves, especially parents. And so it's like finding that grace and compassion to give to someone else, I think is so valuable. And we don't always remember to do that for ourselves. But we need it desperately right now.
There's so many things to talk about with this. We actually covered so much, like, you know, basically managing their own anxiety. You have to do exposures, making them natural, because that's the only way your child will overcome this. There's no other way than to utilize skills. We've talked about so much. Is there anything you're thinking that you'd like to bring up to our listeners that, like, on this topic?
It's so interesting. We were just talking about this again the other day about a particular kiddo that, where, as you mentioned, like, they have a much harder time kind of even showing some progress when the parent is around. Because of that, it's such a learned pattern of interacting that, like, this is what they do when mom is around or when grandpa is around. Like, this is what the parent does for them. And so I think it can be harder to kind of undo and find a new way of learning and establishing connection when the parent is around. That I think even in that situation, eventually we can have that parent, again, kind of, we're talking about doing like reverse fade-ins, where it's like the kiddo is doing really well and talking and having a good time. And then we bring the parent kind of slowly back into the situation so that they are getting more and more comfortable now using their words and being kind of more, again, kind of talking more freely, but now they're doing that with the family member around, that like maybe they weren't feeling like they were able to do that, even though that parent may be the person that is their kind of key person that they know they can talk to. But it's like, as they've learned these new skills, it's like that's the person that almost, I'm going to say contaminated, but that it's like that learned history is so strong of like how they engage with that person when they're in public, it's harder to undo. So I think knowing that we can do that and help them kind of learn a different way of engaging with each other when they're in these different environments.
You know what's also helped there? When I see that dynamic, or the parents sense that dynamic too, is to be very open with your child, age dependent, obviously, developmental level and everything, but to be very open and to say to them something like, wow, you know what? I realize that my approach was every time we go out that you need to do X, Y, and Z. And I realize that's really might be a little hard. And I'm learning other ways we can do this together, and I can help you and support you. And when parents do that and they have those frank, open discussions, it really does like let some of that air out of that balloon. And so we see this sometimes at Communicamp. We'll say something like, I don't know, it's either day 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, whatever day it is. But I often do this and I say, because you see these parents raising their hands saying, wow, I feel like I've been doing this wrong, or, I feel really bad because, and then I'll say, you know what, this is all learning. You're learning. Talk to your kids. Maybe say that to them. Say, wow, today I learned this, this, and this, and I didn't realize that by some of the ways I've been saying stuff that might have made scaries or make it harder for you. And then you watch your child, I'll tell them, and they're just going to like, wow, yeah. And then they start opening up to you. And then all of a sudden, like, you have more dialogue. So for our listeners, like, there's so many ways to deal with a lot of this. There's no one size fits all either.
Yeah, right? Like, operate in the gray.
Right.
Like, you gotta, like, there's a lot of gray out there. There's a lot of different approaches that have been, found to be successful. And, I'll highlight that I think just like, hopefully we've instilled at least some hope in these parents that like they can do this, they got this, because that's the main point, and to be kind to themselves. And I was excited, as I had mentioned to you before, we like just are finishing up a study,
Oh
a
yeah,
long-term outcome study,
share that.
and seeing that like the selective mutism, like over 50% were in full remission, meaning that they did not have any symptoms of selective mutism. And this was on average about 4.5 years post their initial evaluation. And
Aw.
some are teenagers. We still have to kind of look into splitting that up, but that the SM is down. There's still some, we're seeing some other things kind of coming up, which we would sort of expect as they get into more of the teenage years. But, it's really exciting to see that like the SM is going down and really kind of staying down. So I say that as a moment of hope for families, that like
100%.
the work that they're doing is so important, and hopefully will be meaningful for them kind of down the road.
Yeah, and I mean
Yeah.
at the SMA when our panel was at the end of the day, the kids panel, hearing voices,
Oh my gosh.
seeing these
Amazing.
kids on there is so empowering. I would hope for parents, and that's why we do that at Communicamp too. We have
Mm-hmm.
that panel to give them that hope, and to see these kids having full conversations, at the SMA the other day, and just really
Yeah.
confident. Like they ooze confidence, right? They
Yeah.
ooze it.
It was amazing. Yeah. I'm still thinking about all those kids, and I actually went back and watched some of it yesterday, and I think it just like it's so powerful to hear also, I think, their perspectives and
Yeah, very
understand
much.
like what do they really take from everything that they've learned, because I feel like like Communicamp or a bunch, like it's a lot of material, it's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
that we're working on with them over time, and so to really kind of hear for them what really sticks, like what are those key points, because it may be different than what we as clinicians might think are like the most powerful tools, right? We know it's like we got to do these exposures, and yet I think there's a lot of things that like are helpful to hear directly from them about what it's like for them to experience this and to work their way through it. But yeah, the confidence was just makes your heart feel good.